Welcome to Face to Face. This is a show about change and what's next. It's a show that asks questions and peels back the layers of our average everyday experience and goes beyond scratching the surface. We interview people doing incredible things who are making a difference around the globe. Join me as we listen in and get one step closer to understanding that big ideas shared create collaboration. Collaboration can inspire community, and communities create social change. I'm David Peck, and this is Face to Face.
Well, welcome back to Face, and thank you for joining us for our next interview. It's been a little while since I posted, and lots been going on here at Face to Face, and lots been going on with me as I look at a new approach and possibly even a refresh on the podcast. But I'll keep you posted on that. Still going to be doing interviews. You're still going to be able to find them in a variety of different places. I'll keep you posted. But for the meantime, like I said, we've got some really exciting things coming up. But right now, over the next little while, Hot Docs is in town, 2023. It's the next edition of it, and there are some really brilliant films, as always, including our next film. And my next guest is here to talk about his new film called The Mountains. Christian Anchoy is here to talk about what I believe to be a deeply philosophical and existential film about family. But it's also about life and love. It's about loss. It's about relationships, and I think ultimately finding our way back home. And some of us are already at home and are quite comfortable there. But when I talk about it in this sort of symbolic and metaphorical and existential way, I think it really does take on new meaning. And Christian's film is just a beautiful, poetic and compelling journey. You're gonna want to take it with him and his family. It was a 15-year process. It's just a celebration of storytelling and editing, and he combed through over 75,000 photos, family photos, and 25 years of footage. Can you imagine? It's a film about anxiety and about trauma and about crisis and about how loss affects us all. It's also about joy and about finding meaning in and through each other. So I hope you will join us for this interview. Christian Anchoy talking about his new film, The Mountains, and stay tuned for more information about Face to Face. And the film, by the way, you can see at Hot Docs coming up very soon. Head online and see if you can get tickets to the international premiere of this film, or many others as well. And there's going to be some online streaming availability there too. And stay tuned as well for a theatrical release for The Mountains. I'm assuming and hoping and trusting that Christian is able to secure that in the not so distant future. So thanks again for listening. Don't forget davidpecklive.com for more information about my writing and my speaking. And also you can even purchase a copy of Real Change is Incremental there. I am working on a new book. Some of you might be surprised by that, but I really am stepping in and hoping to have something in the not so distant future. Face2facelive.ca. It'll take you to the same place under one umbrella. You can choose from over 600 published interviews there. And please leave us a review. We always appreciate that on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen. Subscribe to podcasts. If you're watching / listening to this on YouTube, subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. We'd appreciate it. It always helps. But for now, sit back, listen in, or pay attention to what's on the road and listen in. Christian Anchoy, his new and beautiful, compelling new film, The Mountains, coming right up. Well, welcome to Face to Face. We are joined by a very special guest here with us today. I'm actually not even sure where he's calling in from, but Christian Anchoy, and the director, editor, producer, and writer of the beautiful and brilliant new film, The Mountains. Christian, thank you so much for joining us today on Face to Face.
Thank you for having me. I have to say I'm not the producer, but all the rest is correct.
Oh, so would you get like a producer with a small p? Maybe small p?
Invisible p, no
an,
p.
an invisible p. I love it. Well, hey, listen, I guess I can almost say welcome to Hot Docs. You're going to be in Toronto in the not so distant future. Thank you for taking the time today, and congratulations, really congratulations, not only on the festival for the international premiere, I believe it is, but also congratulations on such a beautiful touching film. Where did you get the courage to actually start thinking that you were going to put this out there for the world to see? This is such an intimate story, Christian.
Well, thank you. Um, where did I get the courage? I don't feel that it is very courageous. Um, as long as people don't see it as particularly navel gazing, I will be happy. But it's been a very long process. It's been 15 years I've spent trying to make sense of this story, and yeah, it's changed many ways during that course.
Did you have many different names for the film over the years? 15 years is a long time to be piecing together a story.
Right. Uh, Actually, not too many. At some point, it was called The Mountain, and a few years later, it changed into The Mountains. Um, and then I had a small crisis, like a month after Final Cut, where I assembled a list of like 150 alternative names that
Right.
that never like became anything. But so
But
yeah,
you had to go through the process.
apparently yes.
Yeah, well, it's fascinating. So that's really interesting. 15 years. So I mean, it really is a road movie in a sort. Do you see it that way? That when you set out to make this, I mean, is it? Tell us how many hours of footage, but I think 75,000 photographs basically, and about 30 years of footage. Is that right?
Yeah, true. Yeah. I don't even know how many hours, but yeah, it spans. It begins in the end of 92, and or maybe it's 25 years. So it ends in 20, like the Corona 2020. Yeah. However many years that is, that's like the span of the film.
When Christian, when you started piecing it together, was it really about maybe coming to terms with your own identity? You talk about your brother, one of your brothers, having a deep existential crisis. I couldn't help but notice the fact that you were reading Kafka on the
Yeah.
the trial and Dostoevsky's influence there, and so on and so forth. Can you talk a little bit, maybe even about your own crisis?
Uh, yeah, for sure. Like, in my 20s, I had, let's say, my first experience with, yeah, just dealing with anxiety and depression, and this was a completely new uh, vocabulary for me. Like, I didn't even know that this was something that existed. Um, and I think I began to interpret the actions of the people, or especially the men in my family, differently after having gone through that.
Did you find you had more empathy?
Well, yeah, but also like what I um, do in the film. A part of what I do in the film is like digging through. Um, well, let's say for the longest time, so yeah, obviously the setup of the film is that like my brother dies in the 90s, and that's like the family trauma. And I always had this idea that we handled that really well, like as a family, like we were really good at
Right.
like talking about that. So I really didn't think that there was any story to be told about that subject
Right.
even.
Everything was fine.
Yeah, because like my parents would talk about, like during his sickness, they would say like, okay, sons, he will die, and this is terminal, and there was
And Christian,
no.
for our audience, Christopher was your brother's name, yes?
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, yes, and what I'm trying to arrive at is it took a long time for me to realize that there really was anything to unpack in relation to this story, and that arose during these 15 years of filming, that I had to realize this point that even though we talked about the disease as a like physical thing that happened, none of us really put into words how the loss affected us. I don't even now, I don't remember what question that set these words, where we started from, but that was
Yeah. I mean, the question was just, I guess, can you talk a little bit about your own crisis? And I mean, don't we all have an existential crisis of one kind or another? And some of us, I mean, we all deal with it in our own way. And I find it fascinating that it took you so long to figure out that, hey, maybe we didn't deal with this very
right.
well. And
Yeah, and I guess what I do in the film is like look at the men in my family and consider this idea, like, was there something we didn't see, like how were we affected by what happened?
do you think things would have turned out differently? I find it fascinating that the film's not only it's about, I mean, it's about so many things. It's so layered, Christian. I mean, we're talking about family and trauma and PTSD and trust and transparency and the relationship. The list goes on. It really is a remarkable piece. Do you think that things would have turned out differently had you not had a camera on you so often? Your mother near the end of the film says something ironic like, isn't it weird that I have to have a camera in front of me in order to talk to you? And
Right.
I just found that really super, super interesting.
Yeah. um yeah, so the camera's role in the family, uh or my dad buys the camera because Christopher's illness is terminal. Like, that's the reason he buys a camera. And obviously, at the time, I thought nothing of it. But during the making of the film, when I look at this footage, like, it comes across as a sort of coping mechanism.
Right.
His way to use the camera as to even be able to be in this situation, like get up every day and just look at his son perishing gradually. And I also use the camera, obviously, but in a different way. And I think it's related to, well, it became very practical. In the film, we talk about all kinds of things. I've discussed with my brother his thoughts of suicide, that he never related to anyone. And I think these conversations would not have been possible without me having the camera, because we are so, like, we have no method for like dealing with these.
Right.
Yeah, so the camera became a
Which is,
help.
Christian, that's really interesting because don't we often talk about the camera getting in the way?
Right.
Right. We perform for the camera, or boy, wouldn't things have turned out differently had it not been there? But what I'm hearing you saying, it actually was a bridge. It helped you to build, by the looks of it, a better relationship, which I think is really interesting.
For sure. But it is true, or my mother's remark, about putting the camera away. uh, the way I think of the camera in the film is that it served uh, a role for a span of time, which is these 25 years or whatnot. Uh, but then we get through it, and then its time is also uh, it's the time to put the camera away and get truly close, right?
Right. Sort of put the camera away and kind of get on with your life, I suppose, in some respects, or whatever that might mean for your family.
Yeah, or no matter how helpful the presence of the camera might be, it will always add some distance or artificiality,
Sure.
which uh, like not having that would be ideal, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, listen, you talk. I mean, if this film isn't about finding our way back home, I'm not sure what film would be. And I think that is such a beautiful story to tell, and it's a story that we need to continue to tell, and it's a story we need to continue to hear I believe, each and every one of us. You talk about Christmas morning, and it's really beautiful, and I guess your dad is dressed up as Saint Nick, and it's a really, really touching moment. But you said something that really struck deeply for me, and partially because maybe I also loved video games as a kid. But I think the word, the phrase was pure joy when you unwrapped was it Super Nintendo, the game
Super
station?
Nintendo, yeah.
Pure joy. Tell me a little bit about that feeling. Can you recall that? Because is that what you're trying to get back to? Is that the exercise of this film, in a sense, this storytelling, this editing, this project?
Yeah. That's a good point. The scene you're referring to is yeah, me. We've received already the message that Christopher's terminally ill, and it's gonna be a week, so he'll probably pass away before New Year's. And then during Christmas Eve, I get this Super Nintendo. I'm just, really, really happy, obviously, and life is perfect in that moment because
Sure.
I'm 7 years old, and even though like I've been
Doesn't get any
told
better.
that my brother is dying, like it's just too abstract. Like I don't know what
Mm,
that means at that point, really,
hmm
So, uh, and then later in the film, when there is this silly exercise of me and my brothers dressing up as superheroes in these costumes. I think you're right. Like that's an exercise in trying to reach back to this simple, childish, uncomplicated childish happiness that we shared at some point.
do you think you will feel that again? Do you think that it's I couldn't help but think of Albert Camus as well, and the title of your film, The Mountain. You all of you are Sisyphus. You're all pushing the rock up the hill, but aren't
Mm.
we all doing that in our own ways, trying to sort of make sense out of this crazy, beautiful thing we call life? And I
Mm.
wonder. I think we can get back to pure joy. I'm just not sure how to do it. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Like I yeah, I'm not even sure what to say. But other than it did really work. Um, it it did this this act of dressing up and running around like fools. Like it it was a return to childhood. It's not an act for the camera. Like it did really happen, and I don't know what degree of meaning there is in that, but but it did happen.
It may not work for other families, but it sure seems to have worked for you.
Yeah, right.
Do you believe in reconciliation, Christian? Do you believe that with enough thought and enough, I guess, love and care and concern, and maybe enough, like you said, running around like fools, enough moments like that where we're open and honest with each other, that we can heal that sense of brokenness. Because I think every family has a bit of this, but maybe that's just me. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that idea of reconciliation in families?
Yeah, I think, or certainly one thing that I'm very interested in, and is that I'm trying to explore in this film, I think is about masculinity, and like how, because so much of what, like the problems that my brothers and my dad experience, I feel is very related to how one feel one must act as a man, like having that identity. Not in the least my brother's suppression of feelings when Christopher died. Frederick like decided like he's not gonna cry. Even in the funeral, he has in his mind at that point, he's like 7 years old. He's decided like, I'm not gonna cry, and he doesn't, and he never cries like at any point. And I find that really interesting, because where does he get this idea?
At 7 years old, where do you get that idea? Yeah, that's a remarkable question.
So, yeah, something I'm interested in, or have been exploring through making this film, is this idea of that, like where do we get these ideas from, and are we able to change them? Because I think it's really destructive. It's not serving any purpose, this old idea of what it means to be a man, which is
right.
Just suffering, but not suffering in silence. It's a very masculine ideal, right? But it's not serving any purpose.
Don't you say at one point that you just used the phrase? I'm just looking for it here. I can't remember where, but I think it was closer to the end of the film that you just used the phrase "suffering in silence." Don't you say you want to leave the silence behind?
You might be right. I don't remember. I don't recall right now. But maybe.
Yeah, but the idea of
effect,
getting back to this idea of, men often don't share. They give you the silent treatment and so on. And
right. Yeah, and I think this is related to what is expected of men, and what men think is expected of them. And I'm suggesting that we try to strive for a new, or a revision of this idea of what it means to show strength as a man. And that's what, like, I feel the men in my family shows strength through exploring the past, exploring like what really hurts. To me, that's strength.
Asking the tough questions, but also being willing to actually unpack it together, by the sound of it.
Right.
Work through it, work it out. Roll. What's the phrase? Roll up your sleeves. And do because it's hard. It's hard work. I think what your film shows, it's no surprise that it took 15 years really for you to sort of piece this together, because of all the history that you had to work through. But what I love about your film and about the story, and thank you again for sharing it, is that I think all of us can see ourselves in here somewhere. I really do, and I'm looking forward to what comes next for you and for the film, and I hope you're able to enjoy the Q&As and the audience's reactions that you're going to start getting, and you do a really rich, wonderful festival tour. We got to wrap up in a quick minute here or two, but tell me, why Batman? How come you get Batman, and one of your brothers is Robin and the other is Spider-Man?
It's simple, really. I'm the oldest, and Robin is the second oldest. And I had to think about a little bit about Spider-Man, but it's basically because he's from another generation. Me and my brother is from the 80s, and the youngest one is like 10 years younger. So I felt like, I don't even know, and that's someone commented that it doesn't make a lot of sense, like the three of us on the poster, because we're from different universes,
right?
It's DC and Marvel, and it's like, yeah, that's no good.
That's no good. Come on, what are you, a DC or a Marvel guy? Yeah, that's very funny. Yeah, I think that's pretty irrelevant myself, but it's a fun question and a fun thing to consider, and a fun way to end the interview. I love that you've got a sense of humor, Christian. It really is a humorous story as well. I got to tell you, one of my favorite moments, probably not your dad's favorite moment, was, but the fact that he couldn't find the right key for the door. I mean, if that's not the classic metaphor for all of us, but a real pleasure meeting you. Thank you for sharing the film. It's beautiful. It's brilliant. It's not only a reflection on the past, but I think it's a real prophetic sort of tale about the future of what could be for all of us. And I just think that's so beautiful and so brilliant. So once again, thank you. We've been talking with Christian Einschøy. He's coming to Hot Docs in the not so distant future with his beautiful new film, The Mountains. Thank you so much for your time today and spending some quality time with us here on Face to Face, Christian.
Thanks for having me.
Well, there you have it, my conversation with Christian Einschøy talking about his beautiful film, The Mountains. I mean, it's so compelling. I feel like, even as I record this, I feel like I've just recently rewatched the film. It was a powerful and moving piece. I hope you get that sense from the interview, and I really trust that you'll be willing to head out and see the film or watch it online. Check it out at Hot Docs. Head out online and buy tickets. I'm struggling with what to do next, but Hot Docs, check it out. Hot Docs, HOTDOCS.ca for more information on The Mountains. And thanks, Christian, for joining us here on Face to Face. Don't forget davidpecklive.com for more information about what I'm up to. Please leave us a review wherever you listen. Subscribe as well wherever you listen to podcasts, and we will see you again very, very soon. My name's David Peck, and you've been listening to Face to Face.